time for another video. I'm going to give you a little update as to my first month at Western Governors. I'm going to kind of break this down into 3 different segments, parts, I guess you could say. So what I liked, what I learned, and what I'll change for the next month. So what I'll do is I'll start with what I liked. Something that I really liked is when I first got enrolled into the program, the course instructor, the mentor, she was able to give me an outline of all the different projects in the whole program. And they weren't detailed, but they gave you the project title. What that did was first give me an indicator of how many projects were in each course, because you don't have access to that information until you register in a course. But I could see the summary of everything. But it also kind of gave me a little bit of an indicator of what to expect. And it was interesting to see because some of the projects that are to come up, or the papers I should say, are actually outside of my area of experience and expertise. Those are things that I'm going to kind of keep my eye out for before I get to the course, so that I can maybe prepare a little bit and watch some videos and read up on them, just to kind of start to prime myself. But again, seeing that outline was really useful, and it kind of just opened my mind up to what I'm going to be learning. And even in the last part of the program, which is a research focus, it kind of really starts to show how it's all strung together. So, when you have to create an annotated bibliography and a literature review, and then a research statement or a research question, and it's all kind of put together as a series of different tasks in order to lead up to the final capstone. So that was one thing I really liked. Something else that I liked was that the written assignments are very, very clearly outlined as to what to do. Now, I guess for some people who like to be more creative in their academic writing, that might be a little bit dry to have to write about what someone else is asking you to write about. But there is still some creative aspects to it, or a little bit of innovation, because in my field, or in my program, it's the Curriculum and Instruction program, they are asking you to kind of give high-level overview of the different theories and the different concepts, and then eventually have to relate it to your educational setting, which is kind of interesting to kind of start to pair them together. And then the last step usually is to write about a modification or adjustment that you would make moving forward, which at first I thought, well, that's, it's okay to do that. It's not going to be overly interesting. But I did find it interesting to do because it actually got me thinking about my upcoming term and what I would do differently. And so alongside the outline of what to write about, I really like that it gives you a rubric that you can refer to. And so what you're really trying to do is look at the column that says competent, and what does it mean to be competent in each one of those sections that you write about. So for example, I might say to write about 1 modification, and sometimes other ones will say write 2 modifications. So if you don't write about 2, then you won't be in that category of competent. You might be nearing competence, which is the middle category or the middle column within the rubric. So really, I think the university is trying to make it easier for you to pass and to do well. Another thing that I really liked was the use of APA formatting, and you can basically set up a template and then use it for your next paper. So you just kind of open up an old paper, strip out all the content, but leave maybe the title and the first page, the first page is always a title page. So what I learned is that it's good to actually, before you set up start your next paper, what I would recommend is that you actually, even the night before, is set up your template with the section titles in your paper, and to get yourself prepared. I found that doing that makes you feel like you've got a head start, and it's easier to just kind of get the ball rolling the next day. What I should mention is that at this point in the program, I've completed almost 3 courses. Today's the last day. I'm recording this on the very last day of the month, and I just have to finish a small part of a chunk of the last paper. I'll submit that, and then I'll be done the 3 courses. So, originally I set out to do 4, but I ended up completing 3 in a month, which I think is still pretty good. So a few things that I learned throughout the process, which is kind of similar to what I liked, is that you won't ever have the same, you might, but you probably won't have the same evaluator for different papers. And sometimes the papers are related and similar, maybe they're different, but the concepts are transferable from one paper to the next. So what I learned is you kind of have to set context for each paper. You can't just assume that the evaluator is going to understand, like for me, that I teach in post-secondary in a specific field and I teach this level and this is the different types of diverse students. So I kind of have to always set some different, like at the beginning, set context for each paper. It also means that there are times where you can kind of cut and paste parts of your old paper, but you have to reword it because there is a system in place to see if you're self-plagiarizing. So if you copy and paste the same thing into your papers, it's gonna basically pick up on that, and it's gonna say that that's a problem. What I heard from my mentor is that if they believe that you're self-plagiarizing or you're plagiarizing someone else, there's a department where they meet with you. I think it's called like academic integrity, and they might have to talk to you about like what you did wrong and how you might avoid that, and maybe there's a strike against you, I'm not sure. But just know that there are checks in place to see if you're plagiarizing. You will have an evaluator for each project or each paper. You can probably take parts of that last paper if it's similar, but you kind of have to reword it in a way that the software system won't see like dense pieces of information that are the same throughout. So another thing to mention is that the first project in each course, it takes a little bit more time, because if the course is all about theories or it's all about specific concepts in an area, you kind of have to get yourself inundated with that information or refreshed with that information and then start writing. Once you kind of know about that information, the second and third paper is a little bit easier to do because you've already got that background information. So I'm finding that the first paper is taking a little bit more time, and the second and or third are taking a little bit less time to do if you have 3 assessments, performance assessments in one course. Another thing that I started to learn is what I typically write for like how the word count or the page numbers. I write about 10 to 15 pages without the introduction page, like the title page, and without the reference page. Now I have written a little bit less, and I don't find that I can write less than about 8 pages based on all the different criteria of what they're looking for. So I just kind of keep that in mind. So when I'm writing, I kind of know where I'm at. Like if I'm about 5 pages, I kind of feel like I'm about halfway through. But you'll be able to know because it's like a checklist, the criteria of what you're supposed to write about. And kind of if you're at check number 3 and there's 6 components, then you kind of know you're about halfway through. Another thing that I kind of learned throughout the process is that you don't necessarily need to read all the learning material that they give you. The learning material is the chapters. Let's say they give you select certain chapters for you to read, but there's a lot of different components, and I don't feel like it's worth your effort to read everything and memorize everything, especially for a performance assessment. You don't need to memorize. That's really not the objective, is to memorize information. The objective is to make sure you're clear about it, to kind of document some of the relevant parts of the theory on kind of a piece of paper or type it up, and then use that for your paper. So what I do is make sure to go to the rubric and the criteria of what to write about and see what they're looking for. So if they say write about 2 human development theories or write about 2 curriculum theories, and in the textbook it outlines 5, well, go to the last summary page of the chapter, just scan that information to kind of get a sense of those 5 theories, and of the 5, choose 3 that make the most sense for you, that you feel like you can talk on behalf, because some of them maybe aren't as relevant to your body of students that you're teaching, or they're not as relevant to your subjects that you teach, because I teach like a creative subject matter, and therefore some of the strategies or the concepts or theories just feel like I would have to force them a little bit in comparison to others. So I choose some that make the most sense, and then I just learn about those ones, high level overview with some particulars, and make my notes, and then I go write my paper. So a few things that I would most likely change in the next term is my original objective was to do 4 courses a month, which means basically a course a week. So because there are 3 assessments generally, I find that it's a lot to write, and it's very doable. Like I feel like if you're a good writer and you know a lot about the material, then you can do it. It's no problem. But I feel like it's not very enjoyable, and it doesn't give you some flexibility in your week if you're trying to write 3 papers in 1 week. The reason why I was originally aiming for 4 courses in 1 month is because they give you a suggested guideline if you're going to go the fast track, 6 months. And it seems that they wanted you to do a course in a week for the most part, up until the research component, which is kind of 8 courses in. And then they kind of space it out because they want to give you a lot more time for the research. But my mentor basically said, by that point, you have gained a lot of momentum and you do not need 3 months to do your capstone or 2 months or whatever it's suggesting that you do. So I think it's okay to get 3, probably even less, a couple courses in the month, 2 or 3 for the 6-month path. As long as you can stick to that throughout, I think it's perfectly reasonable. I also discovered that at the beginning I wanted to talk to my mentor more, but at this point I don't feel like I need to talk to my mentor because I'm kind of on a roll, and I feel like there's no need to really check in and say, hey, I'm on a roll. I guess if you're off the roll or off your game, you might want to check in and get a little bit more information on how to get yourself motivated. I will be checking in soon to kind of give me access to the 4 next courses, because that person, my mentor, opens up access to the first term, which is the first 4 courses. And if you're accelerating, you need access to the next 4 courses. And something else I mentioned in another video is it might be useful for those who are new to the content. Like when you look through all the course quickly when you first start, and you kind of get a sense of the different theories and the different concepts and the different strategies and all of the learning material, you just kind of first introduce yourself to that. If you feel like it seems a little bit challenging or foreign to you, I would just book a meeting with your instructor. I would try to set out some things to talk about with your instructor, some points, so that it's not just this aimless conversation. So maybe give that person, him or her, an indicator of what you want to write about in that first paper, and then even the second and third, maybe you can talk about it all in one half-an-hour meeting, and then they can just basically say yes, no, good idea, not a good idea, and then you can get all that information and then just go full force from there. So overall, I feel like the experience has been pretty good. I don't feel like it's been overly challenging. I don't feel like it hasn't met my expectations. I feel like it's exactly what I was looking for. I wasn't looking for a program to keep me busy with online forums with other people and doing all these little exercises. I just want to do the papers, write, because first of all, I enjoy writing, and second of all, I'm good at it, and third, I feel like I'm intelligent enough to focus on my own, get the assignment done, and move on to the next thing. And I feel like this fast-paced accelerated learning and accelerated doing is actually making me a better writer, because I'm really focused and I'm really concentrated on doing a good job in a short period of time. So hopefully that's helpful, and if you have any questions, let me know in the comments below, and I will do my best to answer them, but I'll also do my best to start to create notes for the next month, so that at the end of the second month, I'll give you an update as well. Okay, we'll talk to you next time.